What's up, world, and welcome back to the Real News Network. I'm Jared Ball here in Baltimore. We've long known that politics creates strange bedfellows, but what do we make of the wildly right-wing Koch brothers now working with the nominally progressive Van Jones and his Cut 50 project? That is the plan to reduce the prison population in half in 10 years, along with the ACLU, but also ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, which is often associated with funding and promoting the most right-wing of political candidates, most of whom call for more and privatized incarceration. To look a bit more closely at this and related issues is Bret Grote, legal director to the Abolitionist Law Center, which is a public interest law firm inspired by the struggle of political and politicized prisoners and organized for the purpose of abolishing class and race-based mass incarceration here in the United States. Welcome, Bret Grote, to the Real News Network.
Thanks for having me, Jared.
So as I said in the intro, how, from your perspective, should we interpret this unity of the Koch brothers and, again, these nominally progressive organizations and individuals?
In a word, critically, and you have to ask, what are the constituencies that these organizations represent and what are their motivations? The national publicity that's been given to prison reform and criminal justice reform in the past couple of weeks has been building for a number of years, oftentimes under the rhetoric of being smart on crime. And I think this should be understood as an exercise in rebranding. So the tough on crime, mass incarceration policies that have been designed and implemented so as to surveil, imprison, and subject to torture and other cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment, poor people, and particularly communities of color. These policies have been falling into disrepute amongst larger segments of the population and leading to sustained critiques and exposés in the media and now popular uprisings from coast to coast. So the Republican and Democratic parties realize that it is in their interest in maintaining order in the status quo to make some concessions and to go through the motions of appearing to be listening and attentive to the grievances of those populations that are being targeted. But if you examine the proposals that are on the table more closely, you will see that this is not aimed at ending mass incarceration by a long shot.
Well, let's talk a little bit about those proposals if we can, and if we also could note very quickly that even in the statement you just made about the uprisings across the country, a lot of this has been led by prisoners themselves, that is, hunger striking and protesting the conditions that they have to suffer on a daily basis. So we don't want to leave them out of this discussion as we talk about those who have now reformed or reconnected to again, nominally address this issue of mass incarceration. But talk to us a little bit about some of these proposals and why you think that they are insufficient in addressing an issue of incarceration that you and your group have said and been working to abolish entirely.
Sure. I want to focus on the remarks that President Obama made at the NAACP's annual convention right before former President Bill Clinton got up to make his own alleged apology for his role in creating mass incarceration. And in Obama's speech, there is, it should be read. It's being widely praised, but I think very few people have listened to or read the speech aside from sound bites, and it is a deeply reactionary speech. The only thing that vaguely resembles a policy proposal is a call for reduction of sentences, of mandatory minimums, potentially their elimination, for nonviolent drug offenders. And he says this is something that Congress should handle. So the White House itself isn't coming out with any specific proposal along these lines.
And his proposals, if I forgive the interruption, but his proposals also don't address the majority of people who are held in state prisons, not federal ones, if I have that correct as well.
Correct. Now, the federal government only has, direct jurisdiction over crimes that can be prosecuted federally and that have to invoke some sort of interstate interest, typically, or some other federal interest. But with the power of the purse, they can condition grants and other money to states based upon how they structure their criminal, legal, or prison systems. And they've had no trouble doing this when it came to providing conditions for states to get money to build more prisons. But even if people who are incarcerated that as nonviolent drug offenders, if all of them were released, not just from federal, but from federal and state prisons, the United States would still be the world leader in incarceration by a long shot. So this gives you some idea of what is really being discussed when Obama and Hillary Clinton and others say it's time to end mass incarceration. They want to end it in such a way that still leaves the United States as the world leader in incarceration. And we should also note that Obama's not even talking about ending the drug war, not incarcerating nonviolent offenders. He's talking about reducing mandatory minimums, or one of the things that he threw out there was giving judges discretion on how to impose sentences. Now, judicial discretion is traditionally, and up to the present, been exercised in a racist manner in the United States, and there's no reason to think that it wouldn't continue to operate in that way. But by focusing on that one policy proposal, this brings me to a couple of important points about Obama's remarks. The first is that this was not intended to be a first step in a complete overhaul of the system. Instead, it was meant to define the problem narrowly so that Obama and the Democratic and Republican parties would be able to move forward and debate within these narrow confines on what is a safe political target on how to minimally reduce the prison population, right? So they're not going to upset the status quo or, vested political or economic interests, such as, prosecutors associations, although there has been pushback from prosecutors already, from the Fraternal Order of Police, from, the right wing of the political spectrum. It was a very safe call for minor incremental reform. Additionally, it should be noted that at the same time, Obama was saying that focusing on nonviolent drug offenders is diverting resources from law enforcement from going after the more serious crimes that exist. And so he spoke about how they needed to free up resources not to go into creating a social safety net or to rebuilding the welfare system that Clinton has decimated, or doing something to address the growing poverty rates that are imposed by neoliberalism. Instead, it was simply a reshuffling of money within the criminal, legal, prosecutorial, and prison system so as to more effectively repress and manage the populations that are targeted by mass incarceration.
Bret, let me get you to hold right there. We're coming up at the end of a segment, and I want to give you a chance to fully finish your answer here and to address at least one or two other questions that I have related to this issue. So, Bret Grote, thank you for joining us here at the Real News Network. We're going to stick around for a second segment.
Thanks for having me, Jared. My pleasure.
And thank you for joining us here at the Real News Network. For all involved, I'm Jared Ball here in Baltimore. And as always, as Fred Hampton says to you, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. We'll be right back. Peace, everybody.